The hall goes silent the moment Damien Blackthorne opens his mouth, and Elena Ashworth feels the air leave her lungs before he even says the word. Hundreds of pack members stand in rows around the stone courtyard, torches burning against the night sky, waiting for the new Alpha King to claim the woman standing before him as his mate. Stead, his voice rings out cold and final. "I reject you as my mate." The words hit Elena like a blow to the chest. For one terrible second, she cannot breathe, cannot move, cannot understand what she just heard. Then the pain arrives, sharp and burning, spreading from the center of her chest outward, through her arms, her legs, her skull. She staggers back a step, pressing a hand to her collarbone, where the mate mark had begun to form only minutes earlier, a faint silver pattern now flickering like a dying flame beneath her skin. Around her, the crowd murmurs, some gasp. Others whisper behind their hands, already spinning stories they will tell for years, about the night the Alpha King rejected his fated mate, in front of the entire pack. Elena can feel their eyes crawling over her, judging, pitying, some even smiling with quiet satisfaction. She has never felt so exposed in her life. She looks up at Damien, searching his face for some sign of doubt, some flicker of regret. She finds none. His jaw is set, his golden eyes hard as stone, his broad shoulders squared like a man delivering a verdict, rather than breaking a bond that was supposed to last a lifetime. He does not look like a man in pain. He looks like a king protecting his throne from something he does not understand. "Elena!" someone whispers from the crowd. It is Odette, one of the few pack members who has ever shown her kindness. But Elena cannot answer. Her throat has closed around the humiliation, and if she opens her mouth now, she is certain she will either scream or shatter completely, and she refuses to do either in front of these people who already think so little of her. She turns before Damien can say anything else, before the pack elders can offer their false condolences, before the healers can rush forward to check on a bond that is already too badly damaged to save. She runs. Her boots pound against packed earth as she leaves the courtyard behind, cutting through the narrow paths between the training grounds and the old stone wall that marks the edge of pack territory. Nobody follows her. Nobody ever follows the ones who are rejected. It is as if the pack believes rejection itself is a disease, something that might spread if they get too close. The forest swallows her within minutes, dense and dark, the moonlight barely reaching the ground through the thick canopy above. Elena does not slow down. She lets her wolf take over, lets the animal instinct guide her feet over roots and fallen branches, deeper and deeper into the trees, until the sounds of the ceremony fade completely behind her. Only then does she stop, chest heaving, tears finally breaking free and streaming down her face. She sinks to her knees beside a wide, moss-covered rock and presses both hands against her collarbone. The mark is gone now, faded to nothing, and in its place is a strange, hollow ache that feels different from ordinary heartbreak. It feels like something inside her has been unplugged, disconnected from a source of power she did not know she carried until this very night. She does not understand what just happened to her. She does not understand why the rejection hurt so much more than she expected, or why, for one brief moment before Damien spoke those words, she had felt something vast and ancient stir awake inside her chest, like a door creaking open after centuries of being sealed shut. A twig snaps somewhere behind her. Elena's head snaps up, every muscle in her body tensing. Her eyes scan the darkness between the trees, and for a moment she sees nothing but shifting shadows and silver light. Then a shape detaches itself from the darkness, moving low and quiet, and Elena's heart slams against her ribs. It is not a wolf from her pack. The scent is wrong, sharp and foreign, carrying the bitter tang of territory far beyond Blackthorn land. Elena rises slowly to her feet, every instinct screaming at her to run, but her legs feel weak, drained by the broken bond, and she knows she will not get far if this stranger decides to give chase. "Who's there?" she calls out, trying to keep her voice steady. No answer comes. The shape circles closer, and now Elena can make out amber eyes glowing faintly in the dark, fixed directly on her, with an intensity that makes her skin crawl. She takes a step back, her heel catching on a root, and she stumbles hard against the mossy rock behind her. The wolf lunges. Elena throws herself sideways, rolling across the damp earth, as sharp teeth snap shut, inches from where her shoulder had been a heartbeat earlier. Pain shoots up her arm as she scrapes it against the rock, but she forces herself upright, backing away with her hands raised, though she has no weapon and no strength left to shift into her own wolf form. The stranger stalks toward her again, slower this time, savoring the moment, the way a predator savors cornered prey. Elena's mind races. She thinks of screaming for help, but she is miles from the pack house now, and even if someone heard her, would they come running for a woman who was rejected only an hour ago? Or would they let the forest finish what Damien started? She refuses to believe that. She refuses to die here, tonight, torn apart in the dark because of a bond that broke before it ever had the chance to become real. A strange heat begins to build behind her ribs, the same sensation she felt just before the rejection ceremony, that vast ancient presence stirring somewhere deep inside her. Elena does not understand it, does not know how to control it, but she does not fight it either. She lets it rise, lets it fill her veins like liquid fire, and when the strange wolf lunges again, Elena moves faster than she has ever moved in her life. She catches the animal by the throat mid-leap, her fingers digging into thick fur with a strength that should not belong to a woman who has not eaten a full meal in 2 days and has just had her bond violently severed. The wolf yelps in surprise, twisting hard, but Elena holds on, driven by something that feels less like her own will and more like an instinct passed down from somewhere far older than herself. They crash to the ground together, and for a moment, there is only chaos, fur and teeth, and the ragged sound of her own breathing. Then, with a final desperate shove, Elena throws the wolf off her and scrambles backward, putting distance between them. The stranger does not attack again. Instead, it stares at her, amber eyes wide with something that looks almost like fear. Then it turns and vanishes into the trees, leaving Elena alone in the clearing, shaking, bleeding lightly from the scrape on her arm, and utterly bewildered by what she just did. She looks down at her own hands, as if they belonged to someone else. Her fingers are trembling, but there is no denying the strength she felt moments ago, a strength that came from nowhere she recognizes. She has never fought off an attacker like that before. She has never moved that fast, hit that hard, survived that easily. Something is different. Something changed the moment that mate mark flickered and died on her collarbone, and Elena does not know if she should be grateful or terrified. She forces herself to stand, ignoring the ache in her legs, and begins walking deeper into the forest rather than back toward the pack house. She cannot face Damien again tonight. She cannot face the pitying stares or the whispered gossip or the elders who will no doubt already be discussing what to do with a rejected mate who has no family, no title, and now, apparently, no place among them. As she walks, her mind drifts back to the moment just before the ceremony, when Damien had looked at her for the first time, and something had flickered across his face, something that looked almost like recognition, almost like fear. She had thought it was nerves. Now she wonders if it was something else entirely. Why would an alpha king fear a woman he had never met before that night? The question follows her through the trees for what feels like hours, until the forest finally begins to thin, and Elena spots the flicker of a small light in the distance, a single window glowing warm against the darkness. She hesitates only a moment before approaching, too exhausted and too injured to care whether the house belongs to friend or stranger. The cottage is old, built from gray stone, with ivy climbing up one wall, tucked so deep into the forest that Elena is surprised anyone lives here at all. She knocks on the door before she can talk herself out of it, and after a long pause, it creaks open to reveal an elderly man with silver hair and sharp, watchful eyes. He studies her for a long moment, taking in her torn clothes, the blood on her arm, the exhaustion written across her face. Then his gaze drops to her collarbone, to the faint outline where the mate mark used to be, and something shifts in his expression, something that looks almost like shock. "You are the one who was rejected tonight," he says quietly. "It is not a question." Elena nods, too tired to explain further. The old man steps back from the doorway, gesturing for her to come inside. "Come in, child," he says, his voice softer now. "You are safer here than you know, and there is far more to your story than you have been told." Elena hesitates on the threshold. uncertain whether to trust a stranger she has never met, but something in his eyes convinces her he means her no harm. She steps inside, and the door closes softly behind her, sealing her away from the forest and the pack that abandoned her, though she has no way of knowing yet just how much her life is about to change. Inside, the cottage is warm and cluttered, shelves lined with old books and strange artifacts that seem far too ancient for a simple forest dwelling. The old man introduces himself as Matthias, a former pack historian who left Blackthorn territory decades ago after a disagreement with the previous Alpha King. He offers her a chair by the fire and a cup of tea, and though Elena's mind is still spinning from the events of the night, she finds herself grateful for the small kindness. As she settles into the chair, Matthias studies her closely, his sharp eyes lingering on her face, her hands, the faint scar now forming where the wolf's claws grazed her arm. Elena catches him staring and shifts uncomfortably. "Is something wrong?" she asks. Matthias does not answer immediately. Instead, he rises and crosses to a shelf crowded with old books, running his fingers along the spines until he finds the one he is looking for, a thick volume bound in cracked leather with faded silver lettering on the cover. He pulls it down carefully, as if it might crumble in his hands, and sets it on the table beside her. "Tell me something, child," he says, his voice low and careful. "Do you know anything about your birth parents?" Elena shakes her head. "No. I was found as a baby and raised by my aunt in a town far from here. I never knew where I came from." Matthias nods slowly, as if this confirms something he already suspected. "Did you have anything with you when you were found? Any object, any mark, anything unusual?" Elena hesitates, then reaches beneath her torn collar and pulls out a small silver pendant she has worn since childhood, one she has never been able to identify despite years of searching. She holds it out to Matthias, who takes it with trembling hands, turning it over in the firelight to examine the strange symbol etched into its surface. For a long moment, he says nothing at all. Then he looks up at her, and his expression carries something between wonder and dread. "Child," he says quietly, "I believe you carry a bloodline this pack has not seen in over 300 years, a bloodline many believed was lost forever. And if I am right about what I am seeing, then the rejection you suffered tonight may be the least dangerous thing that happens to you this year." Elena stares at him, her exhaustion forgotten, replaced by a slow, creeping sense that her entire world is about to be turned upside down. Outside, the wind picks up, rattling the shutters, and somewhere far in the distance, a wolf begins to howl. She does not yet know that across the territory, Damien Blackthorn is standing alone on his balcony, staring out at the same dark forest, gripped by a guilt he cannot explain, and a restlessness in his own wolf that refuses to settle. He does not know why rejecting Elena felt so wrong the moment the words left his mouth. He only knows that something inside him is screaming that he made a terrible mistake, and that the true danger to his pack has not yet even begun. Elena's fingers tighten around the arm of the chair, as Matthias sets the old leather book down and opens it with careful hands. The pages are brittle, yellowed with age, covered in handwriting so old and faded that Elena can barely make out the words. Matthias flips through them slowly, searching for something specific, muttering under his breath as he scans line after line. "There," he says finally, tapping a page near the middle of the book. A drawing stares back at Elena from the paper, a woman with flowing hair and eyes that seem to glow even in ink, standing at the center of a circle of wolves bowing low before her. Beneath the drawing, in careful script, are words Elena cannot fully read, though one phrase stands out clearly enough for her to understand. "The first Luna." "Who was she?" Elena whispers, unable to look away from the drawing. Matthias settles back into his own chair, the firelight casting deep shadows across his weathered face. "She was the very first Luna this territory ever knew," he explains, "long before Blackthorn Pack existed in its current form, back when the wolves of this land were scattered and constantly at war with one another. Legend says she was born with a gift no one had seen before, a connection to the land itself, a strength that could heal the wounded and calm the most savage of wolves with nothing more than her presence. She united the warring packs under a single banner, and for the first time, this territory knew peace." Elena listens, captivated despite herself, though she still does not understand what any of this has to do with her. But peace never lasts forever, Matthias continues, his voice growing heavier. There were those within her own circle who feared her power, who believed no single bloodline should hold that much influence over so many packs. According to the old records, she was betrayed by someone close to her, someone she trusted completely, and though the details were lost to time, what remained clear was this. Her bloodline was scattered, hidden, driven into secrecy to protect it from those who wished to see it destroyed entirely. For centuries, the pack believed the line had died out completely. Elena's hand drifts unconsciously to the pendant, now resting on the table between them. "And you think I am connected to her?" she asks quietly, though some part of her already knows the answer before Matthias speaks it. "I do not think it, child," he says gently. "I am certain of it. This symbol on your pendant is not decoration. It is the personal mark of the first Luna herself, passed down through generations in secret, hidden inside families who did not even know what they carried. Whoever left this with you as a baby knew exactly what you were, and they went to great lengths to keep you safe from those who might still be searching for this bloodline even now." Elena feels a chill crawl down her spine. "Searching for me," she repeats. "Why would anyone still care about a bloodline from 300 years ago?" Matthias's expression darkens. "Power like that does not simply disappear from memory," he says. "There are those who have spent generations trying to make certain it never resurfaces, and there are others who would give anything to control it for themselves. Tonight, when your mate mark began to form, and then was violently severed, I suspect it caused a ripple that reached far beyond this small clearing. Bloodlines like yours do not stay hidden forever, Elena. Tonight, whether you wanted it to happen or not, you likely announced yourself to the entire wolf world." The weight of his words settles over Elena like a physical thing, pressing down on her chest until she can barely breathe. She thinks of the strange wolf that attacked her in the forest only an hour ago, the foreign scent that did not belong to Blackthorn territory, the way it stared at her with something like recognition before fleeing into the dark. "Was that an accident?" she asks slowly, "or was it already searching for me?" Matthias's silence is answer enough. Elena closes her eyes, trying to process everything. The rejection, the strange surge of strength, the ancient bloodline she never knew she carried, and now the possibility that dangerous enemies may already be hunting her because of who her ancestors were. It is too much for one night, too much for a woman who only hours ago believed her biggest problem was surviving public humiliation in front of an entire pack. "You should rest," Matthias says, noticing the exhaustion finally catching up to her. "There will be time enough tomorrow to plan your next steps. For tonight, you are safe within these walls. I have wards protecting this cottage that even the sharpest noses cannot penetrate." Elena nods, though sleep feels impossible with so many questions swirling through her mind. Still, she allows Matthias to lead her to a small guest room at the back of the cottage, simple but warm, with a narrow bed and a window that looks out over the dark trees. She sits on the edge of the bed long after he leaves, staring down at the pendant in her palm, tracing the strange symbol with her thumb. She thinks about Damien, about the look on his face when he rejected her, that hardness in his golden eyes that had not wavered even as her heart shattered in front of hundreds of witnesses. She wonders if he knew something she did not, if his rejection had nothing to do with her worth, and everything to do with fear of what she might represent. The thought brings her no comfort. If anything, it only deepens the ache in her chest, because it means the man she was meant to spend her life beside chose to hurt her rather than face whatever truth lay hidden beneath the surface. Miles away, in the grand stone halls of the Blackthorn packhouse, Damien Blackthorn stands alone on his private balcony, staring out at the same unbroken stretch of forest that now shelters the woman he rejected only hours ago. His wolf paces restlessly beneath his skin, snarling and clawing at his control, refusing to accept the decision Damien made in front of the entire pack. He does not understand it. He has been Alpha King for less than a month, and already his instincts feel wrong, twisted by something he cannot name. When he looked at Elena tonight, standing before him with hope shining in her eyes, waiting for him to claim her, something ancient and terrified had risen up inside him, seizing control of his voice before his mind could stop it. He had not meant to reject her. He is almost certain of that now, hours later, standing alone in the cold night air. But the words had come anyway, sharp and final, and he had watched her entire world collapse because of them. A knock sounds at his door, pulling him from his thoughts. His beta, Callum, steps into the room, his expression carefully neutral, though Damien has known him long enough to recognize the concern hidden beneath it. "The pack is talking," Callum says quietly. "They want to know why you rejected a mate bond you seemed eager for, only moments before the ceremony began." Damien does not turn from the balcony. "I do not have an answer for them," he admits. "I do not have an answer for myself." Callum crosses the room to stand beside him, following his gaze out toward the dark trees. "For what it is worth," he says carefully, "I do not think you meant to say those words either. I have known you since we were pups, Damien. I have never seen you look at anyone the way you looked at her, right up until the moment everything changed." Damien's jaw tightens. "Then why did I do it?" he asks, more to himself than to Callum. Neither of them has an answer. The wind stirs through the trees below, carrying with it a faint, unfamiliar scent that makes both men go still, some ancient instinct recognizing danger long before their minds can name it. Damien's eyes narrow, fixed on the dark line of the forest where, somewhere beyond his sight, Elena Ashworth sleeps unaware that the night's danger is only beginning, and that the choice he made tonight has set into motion events far larger than either of them yet understands. Elena wakes to the smell of burning wood and the soft clatter of pots in the next room. For a moment, she forgets where she is, disoriented by the unfamiliar ceiling and the thin morning light slipping through gaps in the curtains. Then the memories of the previous night crash back all at once. The rejection, the attack in the forest, the pendant, the first Luna, and she sits up so quickly her head spins. She finds Matthias in the small kitchen, stirring something over the fire, his silver hair still damp from washing. He glances up when she enters, offering a small nod of greeting before gesturing toward a chair at the table. "Eat something first," he says. "We have much to discuss, and you will think more clearly with food in your stomach." Elena obeys, though her appetite feels distant, crowded out by the questions pressing against her mind. She eats in silence for a few minutes, watching Matthias move around the kitchen, with the ease of someone who has lived alone for a very long time. Finally, she cannot hold the question back any longer. "What happens now?" she asks. "If what you told me last night is true, if I really do carry this bloodline, what am I supposed to do with that information?" Matthias sets down his spoon and takes the seat across from her, folding his weathered hands together on the table. "That depends on what you want, child," he says carefully. "You could try to disappear, to live quietly somewhere far from wolf territory, where no one would think to look for you. Many in your position might choose that path, and I would not blame you for it. But," Elena says, sensing there is more. "But I do not think that is truly an option for you. Not anymore," he continues. "Whatever happened last night, whatever surge of power you felt when your bond was severed, it likely announced your existence to more than just the pack elders. If the attack in the forest was any indication, someone out there already suspects what you are, and they will not simply stop searching because you wish to hide." The words settle heavily over the table between them. Elena thinks of the strange wolf, the foreign scent, the way it had frozen and fled, rather than finishing what it started. She wonders now if it had been sent specifically to test her, to confirm what she was, before reporting back to whoever sent it. "So I need to learn how to protect myself," she says slowly, thinking out loud. Matthias's eyes brighten slightly, as if pleased she arrived at the conclusion herself. "Precisely," he says. "The strength you displayed last night was raw and untrained, an instinct rather than a skill. If you truly carry the blood of the first Luna, then there is far more inside you than brute strength alone." Her gifts were said to include healing, an ability to calm even the most violent of wolves, and a connection to the land itself that allowed her to sense danger long before it arrived. If even a fraction of that lives within you, it would serve you well to understand it, rather than stumble through it blindly. "Can you teach me?" Elena asks, surprising herself with how quickly the question leaves her mouth. Matthias considers this for a long moment, his sharp eyes studying her face, as if weighing something important. "I can teach you what I know from the old records," he says finally. "But I am no Luna myself. And there are things about this bloodline that only instinct and experience can reveal. Still, it is better than facing the world with no guidance at all. If you are willing, we can begin today. Elena nods without hesitation. She has spent her entire life feeling like a piece was missing, some explanation for why she never quite belonged anywhere, why her past felt like a locked door she could never find the key to. For the first time, someone is offering her real answers, and she is not about to let the opportunity slip away out of fear. They spend the morning in the small clearing behind the cottage, Matthias guiding her through slow, deliberate exercises meant to help her sense the flow of energy Elena had felt so briefly the night before. At first, nothing happens. Elena closes her eyes, reaches inward, the way Matthias instructs, and feels only the ordinary hum of her own heartbeat. Nothing ancient, nothing powerful, nothing like what saved her life in the forest. "You are trying too hard," Matthias tells her gently, after her third failed attempt. Power like this does not respond to force. It responds to need, to instinct, to moments when the mind steps aside and lets something older take control. Stop reaching for it, and instead simply allow it to be there. Elena exhales slowly, releasing the tension in her shoulders, and tries again. This time, instead of grasping for the feeling, she simply waits, patient and still, letting her mind quiet the way it might just before sleep. Slowly, faintly, she feels it, a warmth unfurling somewhere behind her ribs, gentle at first, then steadily growing stronger, like a small flame catching hold of dry kindling. Her eyes snap open, and she looks down at her hands to find a faint silver light glowing beneath her skin, tracing delicate patterns up her forearms before fading away entirely. Matthias watches with an expression somewhere between awe and concern. "There it is," he murmurs, just as the old text described. Elena stares at her own hands, breathless. "It worked," she says softly. "I actually felt it." "You did," Matthias agrees, though his tone carries a note of caution beneath the praise. "And you must understand, Elena, that feeling it and controlling it are two very different challenges. What you touched just now is only the smallest fraction of what the first Luna was said to command. It will take time, patience, and no small amount of danger before you are ready to use it freely." Elena nods, determined despite the warning. She thinks of the countless nights she spent as a child, wondering where she came from, wishing for even the smallest clue about her family. Now she finally has an answer, one far bigger and more dangerous than she ever imagined, but an answer nonetheless. She is not about to turn away from it now, no matter how difficult the path ahead might be. Far from the quiet clearing behind Matthias's cottage, deep within territory belonging to the Vera clan, a very different conversation is taking place. In a dimly lit chamber carved into the side of a mountain, a woman named Isolde stands before her father, the Vera clan's ruling alpha, delivering news that has left the older man's face pale with barely restrained fury. "She survived," Isolde says, her voice tight with frustration. "Renwick returned only an hour ago, wounded and shaken. He says she moved faster than any untrained wolf should be capable of, that her eyes flashed silver just before she overpowered him." The alpha's fingers curl into a fist against the arm of his stone chair. "Then it is true," he says, his voice low and dangerous. "The bloodline has resurfaced." "It would seem so," Isolde confirms. "And from what Renwick describes, she has no idea what she truly is. She was raised outside wolf territory entirely, discovered the truth of her heritage only within the last day." The alpha rises from his chair, pacing slowly across the chamber, his expression twisted with old, bitter memories. "For 300 years, my family has worked to ensure that bloodline remained buried," he says. "Our ancestors paid a heavy price to scatter it, to make certain no single wolf could ever again hold the kind of influence the first Luna once commanded. If this girl is allowed to grow into her power, to understand what she carries, everything our family sacrificed will have been for nothing." Isolde watches her father carefully, choosing her next words with caution. "What would you have us do?" The alpha stops pacing, turning to face his daughter with cold, calculating eyes. "We find her before she learns to control what she carries," he says. "And we make certain the first Luna's bloodline ends here, permanently, before it ever has the chance to threaten what our family has built." Isolde bows her head in acknowledgement, though a flicker of unease crosses her features as her father turns away, already moving toward the door to gather his most trusted warriors. She has heard stories of the first Luna since childhood, tales passed down as warnings rather than legends, and some small part of her wonders whether hunting down an innocent woman who knows nothing of the danger she carries is truly the righteous path her father believes it to be. But she says nothing, because in the Vera clan, questioning the Alpha's orders is a mistake few survive twice. Back within Blackthorn territory, Damien stands before his council of elders, enduring their pointed questions about the previous night's events, with a patience that feels increasingly difficult to maintain. The eldest among them, a stern woman named Greta, who has served 3 generations of Blackthorn Alphas, watches him with narrowed eyes. You reject a fated mate bond in front of the entire pack, and now you cannot explain why, she says, her tone sharp with disapproval. Do you understand how this looks, Damien? Do you understand what it does to the pack's confidence in your leadership, barely a month into your reign? I understand perfectly well, Damien replies evenly, though frustration simmers just beneath the surface of his calm. I do not have a satisfying answer for you, Greta, because I do not have one for myself. Something happened in that moment I cannot explain, and I intend to find out exactly what it was. Greta's expression softens only slightly. Then find your answers quickly, she warns, because rumors are already spreading beyond our borders, and rejected mate bonds involving royal bloodlines have a way of drawing attention from those who might see opportunity in our instability. Damien's jaw tightens at the warning, though he says nothing more, his mind already drifting back to the forest, to the woman he wronged, and to the growing certainty that whatever forces are at work here have only just begun to make themselves known. 3 days pass in the quiet clearing behind Matthias's cottage, each one filled with slow, careful lessons that leave Elena exhausted by nightfall, but steadily more confident in the strange power stirring inside her. She learns to call the silver light to her hands more quickly now, though controlling its direction still eludes her, and twice she has accidentally scorched patches of grass when the energy surged stronger than she intended. You are improving, Matthias tells her on the 4th morning, watching as she manages to hold a steady glow along her forearm for nearly a full minute before it fades. Faster than I expected, if I am honest. The old texts suggest the first Luna's descendants often struggled for years before achieving what you have managed in a matter of days. Elena wipes sweat from her brow, breathing hard despite the relatively simple exercise. Maybe desperation is a good teacher, she says with a tired smile. Matthias chuckles softly, though the sound carries a note of concern beneath it. Perhaps, he agrees, though I would caution you against relying on desperation alone. True mastery comes from understanding, not fear. If you learn only how to fight, you will always be reacting to danger rather than anticipating it. Elena considers his words as she settles onto a fallen log to rest, watching the morning light filter through the trees above. In the quiet moments between lessons, her mind keeps drifting back to Damien, to the confusion and pain still tangled together in her chest whenever she thinks of him. She hates that some small part of her still wonders what he is doing, still wonders if he has thought of her at all since that terrible night. Do you think he knew? She asks suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Matthias glances up from the small fire he has been tending. Knew what, exactly? What I was, Elena clarifies. Do you think Damien rejected me because he somehow sensed the bloodline, the same way that Wolf in the forest seemed to sense it before it attacked? Matthias considers the question carefully before answering. It is possible, he says slowly. Alpha bloodlines often carry instincts passed down through generations, warnings buried so deep in the blood that even the wolf carrying them may not consciously understand what they are reacting to. If the Blackthorn line has any historical connection to the betrayal that scattered your ancestors, it is not impossible that some ancient instinct recognized what you carried and reacted with fear rather than understanding. Elena absorbs this in silence, turning the idea over in her mind. It does not make the pain of that night any easier to bear, but it offers something she has been missing since the rejection, a reason that has nothing to do with her own worth or inadequacy. If Damien's rejection was driven by ancient instinct rather than genuine judgment of her character, then perhaps she does not need to carry the shame of it quite so heavily. Their conversation is interrupted by a sudden stillness in the forest around them, the birds falling silent all at once, the wind seeming to hold its breath. Matthias rises quickly from his seat by the fire, his sharp eyes scanning the tree line with an alertness Elena has not seen from him before. "Something is wrong," he says quietly. Elena feels it too now, a prickling awareness crawling across her skin, the same instinct that warned her moments before the attack days earlier. She rises to her feet, scanning the shadows between the trees, and catches a flicker of movement near the edge of the clearing, too quick and too controlled to be an ordinary animal. "Get behind me," Matthias instructs, though Elena hesitates, unwilling to hide while danger approaches. Before she can argue, 3 figures step out from the tree line, moving with the coordinated precision of trained warriors rather than curious strangers. The one in front, a tall woman with sharp features and cold, calculating eyes, studies Elena with open interest. "So the rumors are true," she says, her voice carrying easily across the clearing. "The bloodline really has resurfaced." Elena's heart pounds as she recognizes the foreign scent, the same one that clung to the wolf who attacked her days earlier. "Who are you?" she demands, forcing steel into her voice despite the fear coiling in her stomach. "My name is Isolde," the woman replies, her tone almost polite despite the tension crackling in the air between them. "I am here on behalf of the Vera clan, and I am afraid my father has taken a great interest in your continued existence. Nothing personal, of course. Merely 300 years of very careful precaution." Matthias steps forward, placing himself firmly between Elena and the 3 warriors. "This is Blackthorn territory," he says sharply. "You have no authority to act here." Isolde's smile does not waver. "Authority is such a fragile thing during times of instability," she replies smoothly. "And from what I understand, the Blackthorn Alpha has been quite distracted lately, dealing with the fallout of a rather public rejection. I doubt he would notice a small skirmish taking place so far from his packhouse, especially one involving a woman he has already cast aside." The words sting more than Elena expects, and she hates herself for the flash of pain that crosses her face before she can hide it. Isolde notices, her cold eyes flickering with something like satisfaction, and Elena forces herself to push the hurt aside, focusing instead on the very real danger standing before her. "I don't want trouble," Elena says carefully, though her hands curl into fists at her sides, silver light already beginning to flicker faintly beneath her skin. "I don't even understand what I am yet. Whatever your father fears, I am not a threat to anyone." "Perhaps not yet," Isolde replies, taking a slow step forward. "But bloodlines like yours have a way of growing into exactly what everyone fears, whether you intend it or not. My father would rather deal with the problem now, while you are still weak and untrained, than wait until you have grown into something none of us can control." The 2 warriors flanking Isolde shift into position, and Elena realizes with a sinking dread that this is not a conversation meant to end peacefully. She glances at Matthias, whose weathered face has gone tight with tension, his own claws beginning to lengthen despite his age. "Run, child," he murmurs under his breath, low enough that only she can hear. "Get to the packhouse. I will hold them as long as I can." "I'm not leaving you," Elena hisses back, though her pulse is racing, every instinct screaming at her to fight or flee. There is no time to argue further. Isolde's expression hardens, and she gives a sharp nod to her companions. The 2 warriors lunge forward simultaneously, moving with brutal, practiced speed, and the clearing erupts into chaos. Matthias meets the first attacker head-on, his age betrayed by a strength and skill that clearly comes from decades of experience Elena never knew he possessed. Elena barely has time to process the sight before the second warrior turns toward her, teeth bared, closing the distance in the span of a single heartbeat. She does not think, she reacts, the silver light flaring bright along her arms as she throws herself sideways, narrowly avoiding the warrior's snapping jaws. Her own instincts, still raw and untrained, guide her hands as she grabs a fallen branch from the ground and swings it with all the strength she can muster, catching her attacker across the side of the head hard enough to send him stumbling. It is not enough. The warrior recovers quickly, shaking off the blow, and this time, when he lunges, Elena barely manages to twist away, feeling the heat of his breath against her shoulder as his teeth close on empty air where she had been standing a moment before. Across the clearing, Matthias grunts in pain as his opponent lands a heavy blow, and Elena's heart lurches with fear for the old man, who has shown her nothing but kindness since the night of her rejection. She cannot let him fall because of her. Something inside her shifts, the same ancient presence she felt days earlier, surging forward with sudden, overwhelming force. The silver light along her arms brightens sharply, and when the warrior lunges at her again, Elena does not flinch away this time. She meets him head-on, catching him by the throat with a strength that should not belong to her, and with a burst of raw energy she does not fully understand, she throws him bodily across the clearing, his body crashing hard against the base of a nearby tree. Isolde's eyes widen slightly as she watches her warrior struggle to rise, clearly shaken by the display of power. Interesting, she murmurs, though her voice carries a note of genuine unease now beneath the calm facade. Elena turns to help Matthias, but before she can move, a sharp whistle cuts through the clearing, and Isolde raises a hand, signaling her remaining warrior to retreat. He obeys immediately, pulling back to stand at her side, both of them watching Elena with wary caution now, rather than confident aggression. "This is not over," Isolde says, her earlier composure returning despite the setback. "My father will not simply give up because his first attempt failed. Consider this a warning, girl. The moment you truly understand what you carry inside you, we will be waiting." With that, she turns and vanishes into the trees, her two warriors following close behind, leaving Elena standing in the clearing, with her chest heaving, and her hands still glowing faintly with silver light. She rushes to Matthias's side, finding him bruised and bleeding but alive, leaning heavily against the trunk of a tree. "I'm sorry," Elena says, guilt flooding through her as she helps him to sit. "This is because of me. They came because of me." Matthias shakes his head firmly despite the pain evident on his weathered face. "Do not apologize for existing, child," he says. "You did nothing wrong. The blame belongs entirely to those who would rather destroy an innocent life than face the possibility of change." Elena helps him back toward the cottage, her mind racing as the reality of the situation settles over her fully. This is no longer an abstract danger, some distant threat she might avoid if she simply hides carefully enough. The Vera clan knows exactly where to find her, and they will not stop until either she is dead or she has grown powerful enough to defend herself against whatever they send next. As she helps Matthias inside and begins tending to his wounds with hands that still tremble from the encounter, Elena realizes with startling clarity that she cannot continue hiding in this small cottage forever. Sooner or later, she will need allies, real protection, resources beyond what one elderly historian living alone in the forest can provide. And though the thought fills her with dread considering how their last meeting ended, she cannot shake the growing certainty that the only place strong enough to shield her from what is coming might be the very pack that cast her aside only days earlier. Word of the attack reaches Blackthorn territory before Elena even makes her decision. A young scout named Felix, patrolling the outer boundary near the old stone wall, catches the fading scent of Vera clan warriors, mixed with something else entirely, something faint and unfamiliar, yet strangely reminiscent of the woman who was rejected only days earlier. He reports immediately to Callum, who wastes no time bringing the news directly to Damien. "Vera scouts on our border," Callum says without preamble, striding into Damien's study, where the Alpha King has been poring over old treaties and border agreements, searching for any explanation for the restlessness plaguing his wolf since the rejection. And there's something else. Felix says he caught a trace of Elena's scent nearby, mixed with the fighting. Damien's head snaps up immediately, every muscle in his body going tense. "Is she hurt?" he demands, rising from his chair so quickly it scrapes loudly against the stone floor. Felix couldn't tell for certain, Callum admits. The trail was already fading by the time he found it, but there were clear signs of a struggle. Broken branches, scorched grass, blood that wasn't entirely wolf. Damien is already moving toward the door before Callum finishes speaking, his heart pounding with a fear that feels disproportionate to a woman he supposedly rejected and no longer holds any claim over. He tells himself it is only concern for pack territory, for the safety of anyone within Blackthorn borders regardless of their standing. He does not entirely believe the lie, but it is easier than examining the truth too closely. "Gather a tracking party," he orders, already shrugging into a heavier coat as he strides through the halls. I want to know exactly what happened out there, and I want eyes on the Vera clan's movements immediately. If they are bold enough to send warriors onto our land, we need to understand why. Callum falls into step beside him, matching his urgent pace. You think this is connected to the rejection somehow, he says carefully. Damien's jaw tightens. I don't know what to think anymore, he admits. But my instincts have not settled since that night, Callum. Not for a single moment. Something is wrong, something bigger than a simple broken bond, and I intend to find out what it is before anyone else gets hurt because of my mistake. The tracking party assembles quickly, 6 of Blackthorn's most experienced warriors alongside Damien and Callum themselves, moving out into the forest within the hour. They follow the trail Felix discovered, deeper into the trees than Damien has ventured in months, until they reach a clearing scarred with the unmistakable signs of a recent battle. Scorched patches of grass mark the ground in strange, deliberate patterns, and the lingering scent of Vera clan warriors hangs heavy in the air, mixed with traces of blood belonging to neither pack. Damien crouches at the center of the clearing, running his fingers over the blackened grass, studying the pattern with growing confusion. This isn't normal fire damage, he murmurs. This looks almost deliberate, controlled somehow. One of the warriors, an older tracker named Bram, kneels beside him, examining the scorch marks with a practiced eye. I've never seen anything like this, he admits. It's like something channeled raw power directly through the ground itself. Callum's eyes narrow as he studies the wider clearing, noting the direction the fighting seemed to move, the trail leading away toward the deeper forest. Whatever happened here, someone won this fight, he observes. The Vera scent retreats from this point. Someone drove them off. Damien rises slowly, his mind racing through possibilities that all feel equally impossible. Could Elena have done this? He wonders aloud, though the question feels absurd even as he speaks it. She had shown no unusual abilities during their brief courtship before the ceremony, nothing that would suggest she carried this kind of raw, untrained power. We should follow the trail, Callum suggests. Whoever fought here, whether it was Elena or someone else entirely, they may still be nearby, and they may be able to tell us exactly what the Vera clan wants on our territory. Damien nods sharply, already moving toward the trail leading deeper into the woods. The tracking party follows close behind, and within 20 minutes, they emerge from the trees to find a small stone cottage, tucked against the hillside, smoke curling from its chimney, ivy climbing thick along one weathered wall. Damien's instincts flare with sudden, unmistakable recognition, even before the door opens. Somehow, impossibly, he knows Elena is inside. The door creaks open before they reach it, and Matthias steps out onto the small porch, his movements stiff with the aftermath of recent injuries, his sharp eyes studying the group of Blackthorn wolves with open wariness. Can I help you? He asks carefully, positioning himself deliberately between the visitors and the cottage door. I need to speak with Elena, Damien says, his voice carrying more urgency than he intends. We found signs of a fight in the clearing nearby. Vera clan warriors on our territory. I need to know she's safe. Matthias's expression hardens visibly at the mention of Damien's name. Her safety is no longer your concern, he says coldly. You made that quite clear a few nights ago, in front of your entire pack. The words land like a physical blow, and Damien flinches despite himself, guilt washing over him in a fresh wave. I know what I did, he says quietly. I don't have an excuse for it, not one that makes any sense even to myself. But something happened in that moment I still don't understand, and if Elena is in danger because of it, I need to make this right. Before Matthias can respond, the door opens fully, and Elena steps out onto the porch, her expression guarded but steady despite the visible exhaustion and faint bruising along her jaw. Her eyes meet Damien's directly, and for a long, charged moment, neither of them speaks, the tension between them thick enough to feel like a physical presence in the clearing. You shouldn't be here, Elena finally says, her voice carefully controlled despite the storm of emotions clearly warring beneath the surface. Elena, Damien says, taking a step forward before catching himself, uncertain whether he has any right to close the distance between them anymore. We found the clearing, the fighting. Are you hurt? I'm fine, Elena replies, though the slight tremor in her voice suggests the encounter left deeper marks than the visible bruising alone. "Matthias is hurt worse than I am. We handled it." "You shouldn't have had to handle anything alone," Damien says, frustration and guilt tangling together in his voice. "If Vera warriors are attacking people on Blackthorn territory, that's exactly the kind of threat I'm supposed to protect against. Rejected mate or not, you were still within pack borders, still under pack protection." Elena's eyes flash with something sharp and bitter. "Protection," she repeats. "Is that what you call publicly humiliating someone in front of hundreds of witnesses, then acting concerned days later once you learn there might be a bigger threat involved? Forgive me if I find that difficult to believe, Damien." The accusation stings precisely because Damien cannot fully refute it. He has no answer that will not sound like an excuse, no explanation that will erase the pain he caused or the danger she has faced alone because of it. Still, he refuses to simply walk away, not when every instinct in his body is screaming that leaving her unprotected would be an even greater mistake than the rejection itself. "I don't expect you to trust me," he says carefully. "I don't even trust myself right now. But the Vera clan doesn't send warriors onto foreign territory without serious motivation, and if they're targeting you specifically, that's not something either of us can afford to ignore, regardless of what happened between us." Elena studies him for a long moment, clearly weighing his words against the pain still fresh from his rejection. Behind her, Matthias remains tense and watchful, though he says nothing, allowing Elena to make her own decision about how much to reveal. Finally, Elena exhales slowly, some of the tension leaving her shoulders, though her guard remains firmly in place. "They didn't attack randomly," she admits. "They came looking for something specific, someone specific." Damien's brow furrows with confusion. "What do you mean?" Before Elena can answer, a low growl rumbles from the tree line behind the tracking party, and every head turns sharply toward the sound. A lone figure steps into view, moving with deliberate, unhurried confidence despite being clearly outnumbered, and Damien recognizes the sharp, cold features immediately from Bram's earlier description of the scent trail. Isolde smiles thinly at the assembled group, entirely unbothered by the 6 armed Blackthorn warriors now shifting into defensive positions around her. "How touching," she says, her gaze sliding between Damien and Elena with obvious amusement. The Alpha King rushing to protect the mate he so publicly discarded. "My father will find this development quite interesting indeed." Damien's entire body tenses, his wolf surging forward with sudden, protective aggression. "Who are you, and what business do you have on my territory?" he demands. Isolde's smile widens, though her eyes remain cold and calculating. "My name is Isolde, of the Vera clan," she replies smoothly. "And I'm afraid, Alpha King, that the woman standing behind you is far more valuable and far more dangerous than you currently understand. You might want to ask her exactly what bloodline she carries before you decide how hard you're willing to fight to protect her." The clearing falls into tense silence, every eye turning toward Elena, who stands frozen, torn between the instinct to flee and the growing realization that hiding the truth any longer is no longer a choice she can afford to make. Isolde's words hang in the air like smoke, and Elena feels every gaze in the clearing shift toward her, waiting, expectant. She glances at Matthias, who gives the smallest shake of his head, though whether he means to warn her against revealing the truth or simply to stay calm, she cannot tell. Either way, the choice no longer feels like hers to make quietly. Isolde has already opened the door, and pretending otherwise will accomplish nothing except making her look weaker in front of enemies who clearly already know far more than she wishes they did. "I don't owe you an explanation," Elena says, addressing Isolde directly, her voice steadier than she feels. "But since you seem so eager to stir trouble on land that isn't yours, you should leave before this ends, the same way it did a few days ago." Isolde's expression flickers, irritation replacing her earlier amusement. "Confidence suits you," she says coolly, "though I wonder if the Alpha King finds it quite so charming, considering he still doesn't understand what he's dealing with." Damien steps forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Elena despite her clear ability to defend herself. "Enough games," he says sharply. "State your purpose here, or leave Blackthorn territory immediately." Isolde studies him for a long moment, then shrugs, as if the confrontation has grown tiresome. "Very well, she says. My father sent me to observe, nothing more, this time. Consider what happened in the clearing a warning shot, rather than our true intention. Next time, we will not retreat so easily. With that, she turns and melts back into the tree line, vanishing as swiftly and silently as she appeared, leaving the clearing thick with unresolved tension. Damien rounds on Elena immediately, his expression a complicated mixture of concern and confusion. What bloodline was she talking about? He asks, his voice quieter now, stripped of the earlier authority he'd used against Isolde. Elena hesitates, glancing again at Matthias, who finally gives a small, resigned nod, as if acknowledging that the truth cannot remain hidden any longer, not with the Vera clan already circling. She takes a breath, steadying herself before she speaks. According to Matthias, I'm a descendant of someone called the First Luna, she says carefully, watching Damien's face for any reaction. Some ancient bloodline that was scattered and hidden centuries ago. He believes that's why the Vera clan is hunting me, and possibly why the rejection happened the way it did. Damien goes very still, something unreadable passing behind his golden eyes. The First Luna, he repeats slowly, as if testing the weight of the name against something buried deep in memory. You've heard of her? Elena asks, noting his reaction. Damien's jaw tightens. Only in passing, he admits. Old stories my grandmother used to tell. Warnings more than history lessons. She always said the Blackthorn line carried some old debt tied to a betrayal generations back, though she never explained the details, and I always assumed it was superstition, nothing more than pack legend, meant to keep young wolves cautious. Elena studies him carefully. Do you think that's connected to why you rejected me? She asks, the question raw and vulnerable, despite her attempt to keep her voice even. Damien meets her eyes directly, and for the first time since the rejection, Elena sees something that looks almost like genuine anguish behind his controlled expression. I don't know, he admits quietly, but I intend to find out, because whatever happened that night, it wasn't a decision I made willingly. Something took control of me in that moment, Elena, and I have spent every day since trying to understand what. The admission settles heavily between them, neither offering immediate comfort nor easy answers, but shifting something fundamental in the space separating them. Elena finds herself studying his face, searching for deception, and finding none, only the same confusion and guilt that have clearly been eating at him since that terrible night. Whatever is happening, Callum interjects carefully, sensing the need to redirect the conversation before emotions overwhelm practical concerns. We need a plan. The Vera clan won't stop after one warning, and this cottage isn't equipped to withstand a serious attack. Matthias nods in reluctant agreement, glancing toward Elena with obvious concern. He's right. I've done what I can to protect her here, but against organized Vera warriors, my wards will only hold for so long. Damien straightens, decision settling across his features with sudden clarity. Then you'll come to the pack house, he says, looking directly at Elena. Both of you. Whatever happened between us, whatever mistake I made, I won't let you face this alone. Not when the danger involves my own territory, and possibly my own bloodline's history. Elena hesitates, old hurt warring with practical necessity. Returning to the pack house means facing the same people who witnessed her humiliation, the same whispers and pitying stares that drove her into the forest in the first place. But she also recognizes the wisdom in Damien's offer, the simple truth that a small isolated cottage cannot compete with organized warriors determined to eliminate her before she grows into whatever power she is meant to carry. Fine, she says finally, though the word carries visible reluctance. But this doesn't change anything between us, Damien. I'm accepting protection, not forgiveness. Damien nods solemnly, accepting the terms without argument. Understood, he says quietly, though something in his tone suggests he intends to earn far more than mere protection eventually, whenever the timing feels right to attempt it. The group begins the journey back toward Blackthorn Packhouse, Matthias moving slower than the others due to his lingering injuries, Elena walking silently beside Damien, with careful distance maintained between them, despite the shared danger drawing them steadily closer together. Neither speaks much during the walk, both lost in their own tangled thoughts, though occasionally, Elena catches Damien glancing sideways at her, his expression unreadable but intense, as if he is trying to solve a puzzle only he can see. As they near the outer boundary of pack territory, Elena feels a familiar prickling unease crawl across her skin, the same instinct that warned her of danger before the Vera attack days earlier. She slows her steps, scanning the tree line with sudden wariness. "Something wrong?" Damien asks immediately, noticing her hesitation. "I don't know," Elena admits. "It just feels like we're being watched." Damien's own instincts flare in response, and he signals silently for the tracking party to spread out, weapons and senses alert. For several tense moments, nothing happens, only the ordinary sounds of the forest settling around them. Then, from somewhere deep in the trees, a low, mournful howl rises into the afternoon air, distant but unmistakably deliberate, as if announcing their presence to someone, or something, still hidden beyond sight. "It's not Vera," Bram says quietly, his nose lifted to catch the scent carried on the wind. "This is something else entirely." Damien's expression darkens with fresh concern, his hand instinctively moving to rest near Elena's shoulder, a protective gesture he does not consciously decide to make. "Whatever is out there," he says grimly, "we need to move quickly. I don't like being caught exposed when we don't understand what we're dealing with." The group picks up their pace, pushing through the final stretch of forest toward the safety of pack territory, though the howl echoes once more behind them, before fading into unsettling silence, leaving everyone with the uncomfortable certainty that the true danger surrounding Elena's resurfaced bloodline has only just begun to reveal itself, and that far more than the Vera clan alone may now have reason to seek her out. The pack house rises ahead of them at last, its familiar stone walls and high towers catching the last light of afternoon, and Elena feels her stomach tighten with dread at the thought of walking back through those gates, as the woman everyone watched get rejected only days before. She squares her shoulders anyway, refusing to let the old humiliation show on her face as the group passes through the main entrance, drawing curious stares from pack members going about their afternoon duties. Whispers follow them across the courtyard, quiet but unmistakable, and Elena keeps her eyes forward, focusing on the steady presence of Matthias beside her, rather than the judgment radiating from every direction. Damien walks close on her other side, his posture rigid with authority, daring anyone to voice their opinions openly in his presence. "Get her a room in the East Wing, near mine," Damien instructs Callum quietly, "and send for Greta. If Elena's bloodline is truly connected to old pack history, our historian should have access to records even more detailed than what Matthias possesses." Elena glances at him sharply. "You're involving your pack elders in this." "I trust Greta's discretion," Damien replies. "And frankly, if this bloodline is as significant as it seems, hiding it from my own council would be reckless. We need every resource available if the Vera clan is determined to hunt you down." Elena cannot fully argue the logic, though the idea of more people knowing her secret sits uneasily with her. She follows Callum toward the East Wing in silence, settling into a modest but comfortable room that overlooks the training grounds below. Matthias is given quarters nearby, and a healer arrives shortly after to properly tend his lingering injuries from the Vera attack. Alone for the first time since leaving the cottage, Elena sits by the window, watching pack members move through their evening routines below, and allows herself a rare moment to simply breathe. The weight of everything happening feels almost too much to process. The rejection, the bloodline, the attack, and now this strange, cautious alliance forming with the very man who broke her heart in front of hundreds of witnesses. A knock sounds at her door sometime later, and when she opens it, she finds Damien standing in the hallway, looking uncharacteristically uncertain for a man who commands an entire pack. "Can we talk?" he asks quietly. Elena hesitates, then steps aside to let him enter, though she keeps the door open, unwilling to feel trapped in a room alone with the man who caused her so much pain. Damien notices the gesture, but says nothing about it, respecting the boundary without argument. "I owe you a real explanation," he says once the door settles shut behind him. "Not excuses, just the truth, as much of it as I understand." Elena crosses her arms, watching him carefully. "I'm listening." Damien takes a slow breath, choosing his words with obvious care. "When I looked at you that night, right before the ceremony, something inside me recognized you immediately," he begins. not just as my fated mate, but as something older, something my wolf seemed to fear on an instinctive level I couldn't explain or control. The moment I opened my mouth to accept the bond, that fear took over completely, and the rejection came out before I even understood what I was saying. Elena studies his face, searching for any hint of deception, finding only raw honesty instead. "That doesn't make it hurt less," she says quietly. "I know," Damien replies immediately, "and I'm not asking you to forgive me. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I just need you to understand that whatever happened, it wasn't really a choice I made freely. Something manipulated that moment, Elena, and I intend to find out exactly what, because I refuse to believe my own instincts would ever truly choose to hurt you if left uninfluenced." The words settle heavily in the quiet room, and Elena feels something in her chest loosen slightly. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the first fragile step toward understanding. She's still deeply unsure whether she can trust him again, whether the wound from that public humiliation will ever fully heal, but she recognizes the sincerity in his voice, and for now, that feels like enough to build something on, however tentative. "We should focus on the Vera clan first," she says finally, deflecting from the emotional weight of the conversation, before it grows too heavy to manage. "Whatever happened between us, it doesn't matter much if they succeed in eliminating me before I understand my own abilities." Damien nods, accepting the shift in focus without pushing further, though something in his expression suggests the conversation is far from finished between them. "Agreed," he says. "Greta should arrive within the hour. Between her knowledge and Matthias's records, we might finally get real answers about what you're facing, and how to protect yourself against it." True to his word, Greta arrives precisely as promised, her sharp eyes studying Elena with open curiosity, rather than the disdain Elena expected. Rather than judgment, the elderly pack historian seems almost excited by the prospect of investigating a bloodline she clearly believed extinct for centuries. "The first Luna's line," she murmurs, circling Elena slowly like a scholar examining a fascinating specimen. "I never truly believed the old stories, not fully. To think I would live to see proof of it myself." "You know the history then?" Elena asks, eager for any additional information beyond what Matthias has already shared. Greta nods thoughtfully. "Some of it, though much remains lost to time. What I do know is this: the betrayal that scattered the first Luna's bloodline originated within the ruling pack of that era, orchestrated by someone extremely close to her, someone she trusted with her life. The details of who exactly betrayed her have been deliberately erased from most records, though I suspect the truth was considered too dangerous or too shameful to preserve openly." Elena absorbs this information carefully, filing it away alongside everything Matthias already told her. "Do you know why they wanted her bloodline destroyed?" she asks. "Power," Greta answers simply. "The first Luna held influence that transcended typical pack hierarchy, an ability to unite disparate wolves under shared purpose, regardless of blood or territory. Those who benefited from divided packs, from constant rivalry and competition between territories, saw her unifying influence as a direct threat to their own authority. Scattering her bloodline ensured no single wolf could ever again hold that kind of unifying power." Damien, who has been listening silently from near the window, finally speaks up, his expression troubled. "And you believe the Blackthorn line might have some connection to this original betrayal?" he asks. Greta turns to face him directly, her expression serious. "It would explain a great deal," she says carefully. "Ancient instinctual fear passed down through generations, triggered specifically upon encountering the resurfaced bloodline. If your ancestors played any role in the original betrayal, some deep instinctual memory may have recognized Elena's bloodline immediately, reacting with the same fear and hostility that drove the original scattering centuries ago." The revelation settles heavily over the room, and Elena watches Damien's face carefully as he processes the possibility that his own family history might be directly responsible for the very rejection that shattered her heart. His jaw tightens, guilt and anger warring visibly behind his controlled expression. "If that's true," he says quietly, "then I owe you far more than an apology, Elena. I owe you the truth about my own bloodline's history, whatever ugly secrets that might reveal." Elena says nothing immediately, though something shifts in her chest at his words. a fragile thread of understanding beginning to form between them despite everything that still separates them. Whatever ancient betrayal set these events into motion centuries ago, both of them now find themselves caught in its long shadow, forced to untangle a history neither of them fully understands, while enemies circle closer with every passing day. Over the following days, life within the pack house settles into a strange rhythm of purpose and unresolved tension. Elena spends her mornings training in a private courtyard with Matthias, refining her control over the strange silver energy that answers to her call more readily each day. In the afternoons, she pores over ancient texts alongside Greta, piecing together fragments of the first Luna's forgotten history, while Damien remains a near-constant presence, offering resources, protection, and increasingly, quiet company that Elena finds herself reluctantly appreciating, despite everything unresolved between them. "You're getting stronger," Matthias observes one morning, watching Elena hold a steady stream of silver light between her palms for nearly a full minute before releasing it with controlled precision. "Faster than any account I've read of the first Luna's other descendants." Elena wipes sweat from her brow, catching her breath. "Maybe I have better motivation," she says wryly. "Staying alive tends to focus the mind." Matthias chuckles, though his expression quickly sobers. "Motivation alone won't be enough against organized warriors," he warns. "You need more than raw power, Elena. You need precision, strategy, the ability to sense danger before it arrives, rather than simply reacting once it does." As if summoned by the warning, Damien appears at the edge of the courtyard, watching the training session with obvious interest. "Mind if I offer a suggestion?" he asks, stepping closer. Elena eyes him with mild suspicion, though curiosity wins out. "Go ahead." The first Luna's gift included sensing danger through the land itself. "Correct?" Damien says, glancing toward Matthias for confirmation. "What if instead of training reactively, we practiced with Elena blindfolded, relying purely on instinct rather than sight? It might help her tap into whatever deeper connection the bloodline offers." Matthias considers this thoughtfully, clearly impressed despite himself. "That's actually a reasonable suggestion," he admits. Elena raises an eyebrow at Damien. "Since when did you become an expert on ancient bloodline training?" Damien offers a small, genuine smile, the first she's seen from him since the rejection. "Since I started spending every spare moment researching exactly what kind of trouble I got myself into," he replies. Despite herself, Elena feels the corner of her mouth twitch upward, a small crack in the careful wall she's maintained between them since arriving at the pack house. The moment passes quickly, but not before Matthias notices, his sharp eyes flickering between the two of them with quiet, knowing observation. They spend the remainder of the morning testing Damien's suggestion, Elena blindfolded and barefoot in the training courtyard, learning to sense Matthias's careful, controlled attacks through vibration and instinct alone rather than sight. Progress comes slowly, frustratingly so, with Elena stumbling and missing more often than not. But by midday, something shifts, and she manages to sidestep an incoming strike a full second before Matthias moves, her body reacting to some deeper awareness she cannot fully explain. "That's it," Damien says excitedly from the sidelines. "That's exactly it, Elena." Elena pulls off the blindfold, breathless and grinning, despite the exhaustion evident in her posture. "I felt it," she says. "Like the ground itself was warning me." Matthias nods slowly, genuine astonishment coloring his weathered features. "The land connection," he murmurs. "Just as the old text described, you're accessing it faster than I ever believed possible." The small victory carries Elena through the rest of the day, with lighter spirits than she's felt since the rejection, and that evening, when Damien invites her to share a simple meal in the private garden behind his personal quarters, she finds herself accepting, without the usual hesitation that has colored their interactions since her arrival. They eat mostly in comfortable silence at first, the tension between them gradually easing as the sun sets over the pack territory beyond the garden walls. Eventually, Damien breaks the quiet, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking about what Greta said," he admits. "About my bloodline possibly being connected to the original betrayal." Elena watches him carefully, and, "I want to find proof," he says firmly. "Not just theories or ancient instinct, but actual evidence of what happened and why." If my ancestors truly played a role in destroying the First Luna's legacy, I need to understand exactly how and why, because I refuse to let that same fear control my choices any longer. Elena considers his words, something warm and cautiously hopeful stirring in her chest, despite her lingering hurt. That's a good instinct, she says quietly. Understanding the past is usually the only way to stop repeating it. Their eyes meet across the small table, and for a moment, the weight of everything unresolved between them seems to soften slightly, replaced by something gentler, more fragile, though neither of them names it aloud. The moment stretches, comfortable and charged all at once, until a sharp knock interrupts them, and Callum appears at the garden entrance, his expression tight with urgency. "Sorry to interrupt," he says quickly, "but we've received word from our scouts near the eastern border. Vera clan movement, larger than before. It looks like they're mobilizing." Damien rises immediately, all traces of the earlier softness replaced by sharp, focused authority. "How large a force?" he asks. Callum hesitates slightly before answering, and Elena notices something strange flicker across his expression, gone too quickly to properly identify. "Large enough to be concerning," he says finally. "Scouts estimate at least 20 warriors, possibly more." Damien's jaw tightens with grim determination. "Then we prepare for the possibility of direct confrontation," he says. "Double the border patrols immediately, and alert the Pack Council. If the Vera clan intends to escalate this conflict, we need to be ready to respond decisively." Callum nods and disappears quickly to relay the orders, leaving Elena and Damien alone once more in the quiet garden, though the earlier warmth between them has been replaced now by tense, watchful concern. Elena studies Damien's face, noting the weight of leadership settling visibly across his features. "They're really coming, aren't they?" she says quietly. Damien meets her eyes, something protective and fierce burning behind his golden gaze. "Let them come," he says firmly. "Whatever ancient debt my bloodline owes yours, I intend to make certain it doesn't cost you your life, Elena, not while I still draw breath to prevent it." The declaration hangs heavy and sincere between them, and though Elena still carries the deep wound of his public rejection, she cannot deny the genuine conviction burning in his voice now. Whatever complicated history and uncertain future still lie ahead of them, she finds herself believing, at least in this moment, that Damien means every word of his promise, even as the looming threat of the Vera clan's advance casts a dark shadow over whatever fragile trust they've begun rebuilding between them. The pack house transforms overnight into a hive of urgent preparation. Warriors sharpen weapons and reinforce the outer perimeter, while scouts move in constant rotation along the eastern border, tracking the Vera clan's advance with careful precision. Elena finds herself swept into the preparations as well, her training with Matthias intensifying now that a real confrontation seems inevitable, rather than merely theoretical. "You need to be ready for anything," Matthias tells her during an early morning session, his voice carrying more urgency than usual. "If the Vera clan brings 20 warriors or more, you cannot rely solely on instinct and raw power. You need control, precision, the ability to conserve your strength for when it truly matters." Elena nods, sweat already beading on her forehead despite the cool morning air. "Then teach me faster," she says. "We don't exactly have the luxury of time anymore." Matthias pushes her harder over the following days, drilling her relentlessly in both physical combat and the delicate art of channeling her strange inherited power with greater control. Slowly, painstakingly, Elena begins to notice genuine improvement, the silver energy responding more precisely to her intentions, her instincts sharpening with each passing session, until she can sense subtle shifts in the air around her that she never would have noticed before. Meanwhile, tensions simmer within the Pack Council as elders debate the wisest course of action regarding the approaching threat. Greta advocates strongly for direct confrontation, arguing that allowing the Vera clan to establish any foothold near Blackthorn borders would only invite further aggression down the line. Others urge caution, worried about the political ramifications of open conflict with another established clan, particularly one with the resources and organization the Vera clan appears to command. Through it all, Damien remains a steady, decisive presence, weighing every perspective carefully, while ultimately trusting his own instincts to guide the pack's response. Elena watches him navigate these pressures with growing respect. noting the genuine care he takes to protect both his pack's interests and, increasingly obviously, her own safety specifically. One evening, as preparations continue late into the night, Elena finds herself unable to sleep, her mind restless with anticipation of the coming confrontation. She wanders down to the training courtyard, finding it empty and quiet under the pale moonlight, and begins running through the exercises Matthias taught her, seeking calm in the familiar movements. She doesn't notice Damien's approach until he speaks softly from the courtyard entrance. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asks. Elena lowers her hands, the faint silver glow fading from her palms as she turns to face him. "Too much on my mind," she admits. Damien steps closer, settling onto a low stone bench at the courtyard's edge. "Mind if I join you?" he asks, gesturing to the space beside him. Elena hesitates only briefly before crossing the courtyard and sitting down, leaving a careful but not unfriendly distance between them. For a while, neither speaks, simply sharing the quiet night air and the weight of what tomorrow, or the day after, might bring. "I keep thinking about what happens if we can't stop them," Elena finally admits, breaking the silence. "What if all this training isn't enough? What if the Vera clan really does want to erase this bloodline entirely, no matter the cost?" Damien turns to look at her directly, his expression fierce despite the late hour. "Then we make certain it isn't enough for them to succeed," he says firmly. "Elena, I know I have no right to ask for your trust after everything that happened between us, but I need you to understand something. I will not let them take you. Whatever ancient debt exists between our bloodlines, whatever fear drove that terrible rejection, none of it changes what I feel when I look at you now, which is absolute certainty that protecting you matters more than anything else in my life right now." The raw honesty in his voice catches Elena off guard, and she finds herself studying his face carefully in the moonlight, searching for any hint of performance or manipulation, finding only sincere, unguarded emotion instead. Something shifts inside her chest, a fragile warmth beginning to melt away at the edges of the protective wall she's maintained since the rejection. "I want to believe you," she admits quietly. "I'm just scared of being hurt again." Damien reaches out slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and gently takes her hand in his own. "I understand that fear," he says softly, "and I won't pretend I've earned back your full trust yet. But I promise you this, Elena. Whatever happens in the coming days, I intend to spend every moment proving that the man who rejected you that night was not truly acting according to his own free will, and that the real me has only grown more certain with each passing day that you are exactly who I am meant to stand beside." Elena doesn't pull her hand away. Instead, she allows herself this small, fragile moment of connection, the warmth of his palm against hers grounding her against the fear and uncertainty churning beneath the surface of the coming conflict. They sit together in comfortable silence for a long while afterward, the tentative beginnings of renewed trust settling quietly between them, under the watchful light of the moon. The peaceful moment shatters abruptly when a sharp horn blast echoes across the pack territory, the unmistakable signal for imminent attack. Both Elena and Damien rise immediately, all traces of softness replaced instantly by fierce, focused urgency. "They're here," Damien says grimly, already moving toward the courtyard exit. "Stay close to me, Elena. Whatever happens tonight, we face it together." Elena nods firmly, the silver energy already beginning to hum beneath her skin in anticipation of the coming battle. "Together," she agrees, and follows him swiftly toward the chaos beginning to unfold at the edges of Blackthorn territory, unaware that among the warriors rushing to meet the threat, one trusted face harbors secrets far more dangerous than the enemy gathering beyond the borders. The border erupts into chaos by the time Elena and Damien arrive, the night air filled with snarls and the clash of bodies as Blackthorn warriors meet the advancing Vera clan line head-on. Torches cast wild, flickering shadows across the battlefield, and Elena's heart pounds as she takes in the sheer scale of the confrontation, far larger and more brutal than anything her training could have fully prepared her for. "Stay close," Damien shouts over the noise, shifting into his wolf form with fluid, practiced ease, before charging into the fray. Elena follows close behind, calling on the silver energy now humming steadily beneath her skin, ready to defend herself and the pack that has, however imperfectly, become her refuge over the past days. She catches sight of Isolde near the center of the battle, directing Vera warriors with cold, calculated precision, her sharp eyes scanning the chaos until they land directly on Elena. A slow, satisfied smile crosses her face, and she begins moving deliberately through the fighting, cutting a direct path toward her intended target. Elena braces herself, silver light flaring bright along her arms as Isolde closes the distance between them. "This ends tonight," Isolde calls out, baring her teeth in a fierce, predatory smile. "One way or another, girl, your bloodline stops here." Elena doesn't back down, meeting Isolde's aggressive approach with fierce determination of her own. Their confrontation becomes a blur of motion, Isolde's trained combat skill clashing against Elena's raw, rapidly improving power, neither gaining clear advantage as they trade blows across the chaotic battlefield. Meanwhile, deeper within the fighting, Damien finds himself locked in combat against a heavily built Vera warrior, his focus split between the immediate threat and worried glances toward Elena's ongoing struggle against Isolde. In the chaos, he doesn't notice Callum breaking away from the main battle, moving with deliberate purpose toward the pack house, rather than remaining to fight alongside his alpha. Inside the pack house, Callum moves swiftly through empty corridors until he reaches a hidden chamber beneath the old library, one very few pack members even know exists. He kneels before an ancient stone altar, drawing a small vial of dark liquid from beneath his coat, his expression tight with grim resolve. "I'm sorry, old friend," he murmurs to himself, beginning to trace strange symbols across the altar's surface with practiced, familiar movements. "But I cannot allow that bloodline to resurface, not after everything my family sacrificed generations ago to help scatter it in the first place." Unbeknownst to Damien, Callum's lineage traces back directly to the original betrayal that shattered the first Luna's bloodline centuries earlier, a secret carefully guarded and passed down through generations of his family, hidden even from the Blackthorn royal line itself. It was Callum who orchestrated the strange compulsion that seized control of Damien during the rejection ceremony, using ancient forbidden magic passed down through his own ancestral line to manipulate his closest friend's instincts in that critical, devastating moment. Now, with the battle raging outside providing perfect cover, Callum intends to finish what his ancestors started centuries ago, channeling dark, forbidden energy through the ancient altar in an attempt to sever Elena's connection to her inherited power permanently, ensuring the first Luna's bloodline dies here, tonight, regardless of who wins the battle outside. Back on the battlefield, Elena begins to sense something shifting in the air around her, a strange, disorienting pull she cannot immediately identify. Her connection to the silver energy suddenly feels distant, muffled, as though something is actively working to sever it from a source she cannot see or locate. "Something's wrong," she gasps, stumbling as Isolde presses her advantage, sensing the sudden weakness in her opponent's defenses. Isolde's eyes widen with surprised satisfaction. "It's happening," she breathes, though confusion flickers briefly across her features, as if she herself is uncertain exactly what is occurring. Damien, fighting nearby, catches sight of Elena's sudden distress, and abandons his own opponent immediately, fighting his way through the chaos to reach her side. "What's happening?" he demands, catching Elena as her knees buckle beneath the strange, draining sensation spreading through her body. "I don't know," Elena gasps, her silver light flickering weakly now, fading in and out like a dying flame. "Something is pulling it away from me, cutting me off from wherever it comes from." Damien's instincts flare with sudden, terrible understanding, some deep ancestral memory finally clicking into place. "The altar," he breathes, his eyes widening with horrified realization. "The old ritual chamber beneath the library. Someone is trying to finish what my ancestors started centuries ago." "Who would know about that chamber?" Elena asks weakly, struggling to remain conscious against the strange, draining pull. Damien's expression turns to stone as the final piece falls devastatingly into place. "Only Pack royalty and their most trusted advisors know that chamber exists," he says slowly, horror creeping into his voice. "Elena, I need to get you to safety immediately, and then I need to find Callum." The realization crashes over him with sickening clarity, understanding finally arriving for the strange compulsion that seized control of him during the rejection ceremony weeks earlier. Someone close to him, someone he trusted completely, has been working against him and Elena from the very beginning, and the true battle tonight is not merely against the Vera clan warriors clashing across the border, but against a betrayal hidden far closer to home than either of them ever suspected. With Elena's strength fading rapidly, and the ancient ritual beneath the pack house threatening to sever her connection to her inherited power permanently, Damien carries her swiftly away from the battlefield, determined to confront the truth of Callum's betrayal before it costs Elena everything she has only just begun to understand about her own destiny. Damien carries Elena through the chaos, her body growing weaker with every passing second as the strange pull continues draining the silver energy from her veins. He reaches the pack house entrance and descends quickly toward the old library, following instincts and half-remembered childhood stories about the hidden chamber his grandmother once warned him never to seek out. He finds the entrance behind a shifted bookshelf, a narrow stone stairway leading down into darkness, lit only by the faint, eerie glow of candlelight below. Setting Elena down gently against the wall, he presses a firm hand to her cheek. "Stay here," he says urgently. "I'll end this." Elena catches his wrist weakly, her silver light flickering faintly along her fingers despite her exhaustion. "Not alone," she whispers. "Please." Damien hesitates only a moment before helping her rise, supporting her weight against his side as they descend together into the hidden chamber. They find Callum kneeling before the ancient altar, dark energy swirling around his hands as he channels the final stages of the forbidden ritual, his expression strained with concentration, and something that looks uncomfortably like grief. "Callum," Damien says, his voice cracking with disbelief and betrayal. "Stop this. Please." Callum's eyes snap open, and for a brief moment, genuine regret flashes across his face, before hardening into grim resolve. "I can't, Damien," he says, his voice tight. "My family has carried this burden for 300 years. I won't be the one who lets that bloodline destroy everything we sacrificed to protect." "You mean everything your family betrayed to protect?" Elena says weakly, forcing strength into her voice, despite the draining pull still working against her. "The first Luna trusted your ancestors. She never threatened anyone. She only wanted peace." Callum flinches, though his hands do not stop moving through the ritual's final motions. "Peace built on one bloodline's absolute power is not true peace," he argues. "It is dependency, fragility disguised as unity. My ancestors believed removing that risk would protect this territory permanently. And instead, it left us divided for centuries," Damien counters fiercely, stepping forward despite the dark energy crackling dangerously around the altar. "Callum, look at what your secrecy has already cost. It twisted my own instincts against the woman I was always meant to stand beside. It's driving warriors to die on our borders tonight. Whatever your ancestors believed, this path has only caused more harm, not less." Callum's hands falter slightly, doubt flickering behind his tightly controlled expression. "It's too late to stop now," he says, though his voice carries noticeably less conviction than before. "The ritual is nearly complete." "Then let me finish it," Elena says suddenly, straightening despite her weakness, drawing both men's attention sharply toward her. "If this ritual is truly meant to sever a connection, then let it face the source directly, rather than draining me from a distance like a coward's trick." Before either man can stop her, Elena pushes forward unsteadily, placing her palm directly against the ancient altar's surface. The dark energy surges violently in response, and for a terrifying moment, Elena cries out in pain as the ritual's full force concentrates directly through her touch. But rather than severing her connection entirely, the direct contact seems to trigger something else instead. The silver light within her, responding with sudden, fierce resistance, meeting the dark energy head-on rather than allowing itself to be quietly drained away. The chamber fills with blinding light as ancient power clashes violently against ancient betrayal, and Damien shields his eyes, reaching for Elena, though he cannot get close enough through the storm of energy now swirling around her. Callum stumbles backward, his own control over the ritual shattering as the altar's surface begins to crack beneath the overwhelming force now channeling through it. "I won't be erased," Elena cries out, her voice carrying strength that sounds far older than her own, layered with something ancient and unbroken beneath it. Not by fear, not by secrecy, not by a betrayal 300 years old that was never mine to pay for. With a final, thunderous surge of silver light, the dark energy shatters completely, the altar crumbling into harmless stone dust, as the ancient ritual collapses entirely. Elena staggers backward, caught immediately by Damien's steady arms, her breathing ragged, but her silver light burning brighter and steadier than it ever has before, fully restored and, if anything, strengthened by the confrontation rather than diminished. Callum sinks to his knees amid the ruined altar, defeat and exhaustion replacing his earlier grim determination. "It's over," he says quietly, more to himself than to either of them. 300 years, and it ends like this. Damien studies his old friend with a complicated mixture of anger and lingering sorrow. "You betrayed everything I trusted you with," he says heavily. "I don't know if I can forgive that, Callum." Callum meets his gaze steadily, accepting the judgment without argument. "I don't expect you to," he replies. "Whatever punishment the council decides, I will accept it. I believed I was protecting this pack. I see now how wrong I was." Above them, the sounds of battle begin to fade as word spreads through the Veyra ranks that whatever mysterious force Isolde felt working in their favor has suddenly reversed entirely. Elena's power now burning brighter and more controlled than ever before. Recognizing the shifting tide, Isolde makes the difficult decision to order a full retreat, unwilling to lose additional warriors chasing a victory that has clearly slipped beyond reach. In the days that follow, order slowly returns to Blackthorn territory. Callum is formally stripped of his position as Beta, though Damien, after long deliberation, chooses exile rather than harsher punishment, recognizing that his old friend acted from generations of inherited fear rather than genuine malice. The Pack Council, led by Greta, begins the long process of researching and finally understanding the true history behind the first Luna's bloodline, determined to ensure such secrecy and fear never again drives a betrayal of this magnitude. Elena, meanwhile, finds her power growing steadily stronger and more controlled with each passing week, no longer haunted by uncertainty about her own heritage, but instead embracing the legacy she carries with quiet, growing confidence. The connection between her and Damien, tested so severely by betrayal and ancient fear, gradually rebuilds itself into something stronger and more genuine than what existed before, forged now through shared struggle rather than simple fated instinct alone. On a clear evening beneath a sky full of stars, Damien requests a second ceremony, this time before the full gathered pack, his voice steady and certain as he formally acknowledges Elena as his true and rightful mate, the ancient compulsion that once twisted his words, now fully understood and permanently broken. This time, when he speaks, there is no hesitation, no ancient fear seizing control of his voice, only genuine love and unwavering certainty as he claims the bond he was always truly meant to embrace. Elena accepts without hesitation, the mate mark blooming brightly and permanently across her collarbone, silver light intertwining beautifully with the traditional pack markings, as centuries of scattered history finally find their way back toward unity rather than fear. The gathered pack erupts into genuine celebration this time, their earlier judgment replaced now by respect and quiet awe for the woman who survived betrayal, ancient danger, and overwhelming odds to reclaim a legacy believed lost forever. As the celebration continues around them, Damien pulls Elena close, resting his forehead gently against hers. "I'm sorry it took nearly losing everything to get here," he murmurs. Elena smiles softly, threading her fingers through his. "We got here anyway," she replies. "That's what matters now." Above them, the stars shine steadily over Blackthorn territory, silent witnesses to a bloodline finally restored, a betrayal finally healed, and a partnership forged strong enough to guide the pack toward a future built on genuine unity rather than centuries of buried fear, exactly as the first Luna herself once dreamed it could be.